Okay, so in this video, I'm going to talk about classes and what classes are and how we can use them in our code. Okay, so the best way to understand a class is to think of it as a data type. We can think of a class as an integer, for example. So the way we declare a variable is that we first declare the data type. We say int, and then we say the name of the variable, and then we assign a value to that variable, right? So classes are similar to that in the concept, but the thing about a class is that it's a little bit more complex. So when we declare a class, we say public class human. For example, in this case, we're calling a class called human, and we give this class some properties. So we say, for example, int power equals 34, int health equals 300. So imagine that in your game you want to create a human, and you cannot say, okay, so a human is number 6. Or a human is a number, right? You cannot define a human with a number or a word. So a human, because a human is a little bit more complex than that. So the way to describe a human is, or the way we could describe a human is by creating a class, which is a more complex data type, if you want to think of it that way. And inside this class, we can create now some properties or some variables. Properties and variables are the same thing. And we can also create some methods. And in this class, for example, we have our own function 1 and function 2. And you can see that before the data type of each function, there's a public or private. You can specify whether or not these functions are public or private. The same thing you can do with the variables. You can specify. If you don't say anything, that means that by default they're private. And now maybe you're asking yourself, okay, and what's the meaning of public and private? Okay, so to answer that question, first we need to understand why we actually create a class. We create a class because we want to create a variable of the data type of that class in another class. So in this example, we have our public class main, the same thing, we have this same exact class in the Unity editor. We have this monobehavior word. So for now, don't think too much about this monobehavior word. The only thing you need to know about monobehavior right now is that when we put here monobehavior after the name of the class, it means that we can use methods like start and update. So we could say that this is more like a special class, okay? But it's not exactly that thing, but just think about it that way for now. Okay, so we create the human class, and now we want to create a variable of type human inside our main class. So in the start function, what we can do is that we can specify the type of the variable that we want to define. In this case, we want to define a human. We call this variable Joseph. So Joseph would be the name of the variable. And once we create the variable, we have to assign the value. We have to assign what we call in programming the object. So this new is a special keyword that we use. So we say new, and then we type in the name of the class, and we open and close parentheses, and this is the structure to use when we want to create an object of that class. So an object of a class is just a variable of the type of that class that holds an object of that class. So here we actually created a variable Joseph of type human, and now what we can do is that we can just say Joseph. So we can type the name of the variable, and then we can use the dot punctuation. So we can place a dot, and after the dot we can get access to any public. So here is when public and private make sense, because here I'm saying that we can only access any public properties or functions or methods that class has. So in the example of human, the only public thing that we have is a public void function 1. So the only thing that we can call here from the variable, from the object, once this is an object, we don't call it a variable anymore. We call it an object because it makes reference to an object. Just like the same way that when you have an int that is called number 1 and it's equal to 6, every time you say number 1, you know that the value is 6. So here, when we create a human and we call it Joseph, then we call this an object. So every time we use this object, we can call with the dot format, we can call any public property of that object. So in this case, this object is of type human, and inside the class human, the only public thing that we have is function 1. So we can call function 1. If this in function 1 received some input, then we could actually specify the input in here. But function 1 does not receive any input here in the human class, so no input is here. So right now what we're going to do is that we're going to create a little game. Okay, it's just a game based on code, and what we're going to do is that we're going to create an alien class. I want you to try to do this with the knowledge that you have now. Okay, so I want you to create an alien class that has two properties. This alien class is going to have an int health of 500 and an int power of 60. Then you have to create a method, and this is the structure of the method that I want you to create. The structure of the method is public void take damage, and inside this method you have to make it so it takes 50 from the health. So every time we call this method, we're gonna take 50 away from the health. And then I want you also to create a method public int get health that returns the health of the alien. So inside this method, I only want you to return the health of the alien. Okay, so pause the video and try to do it. Alright, so let's go to, first of all, let's go to the Unity editor and let's go to the project. And you can see that right now, the only thing that we have is a main class attached to our main object. So in here, in the project view, in the assets folder, we're going to right click and we're going to select create, and we're going to select C# script because we have to create an alien class. So in here, we're going to type in alien. Remember to type the first letter has to be a capital letter. Press enter. Now we have our alien class. We're going to double click and our alien class is going to open in Visual Studio. Okay, so now we have to create the properties, but before doing that, we're going to get rid of start and update because we don't need that. And we're also going to get rid of these two dots and mono behavior. So delete that. So now this class is not a special class per se, it's a normal class. So inside this normal class, we're going to create the two properties. So we're going to say int health equals 500 and int power equals 60. And now we have to create two methods. The first method that we have to create is a method okay, let me check what we had to do. Okay, we had to create a public void take damage that takes 50 from the health. Okay, so let's try to do that. So a public void take damage, okay, and that takes 50 away from the health. So we need to find a way to take 50 away from the health. The health is 500, so we have to alter the value of health. So inside this method, we can say that health equals health minus 50, just like this. So every time we call this method, we're going to take 50 away from health. Okay, and now we have to create another method, and let's see what we have to do. We have to create a method public int get health that returns the health of the alien. Okay, so we're gonna go back to Visual Studio. So public int get health, and inside this method, the only thing that we have to do is that we have to return the health of the alien. All right. Okay, so let's go now back to the slides and let's see what we have to do next. Okay, so next we have to create a human class that has two properties, int health 200 and int power 20. Then we have to create a method public void take damage that takes 30 from the health, and create a method public int get health that returns the health of the human. Okay, let's try to do, okay, pause the video and try to do it by yourself. Okay, so now what we're going to do for this class is that we're going to go to the Unity editor and we're going to create a new class inside the assets in the project view, create C#. Let's call this class human, capital H, uppercase H. Open the human class, get rid of start and update, get rid of mono behavior and the two dots, and inside we're gonna just type in int health equals 200 and int power equals 20. Okay, so we have to create let's check it out just to make sure. We have to create a public void take damage that takes 30 from the health. So public void take damage that takes 30 away from the health. Okay, so health equals health minus 30, and now we have to create a public int get health, and inside here we have to just return the health value. So return health. Okay, so now we have our two classes. Let's see what we have to do next. Okay, so next we have to create an object of the human and another object of the alien class in the start function of the main script, and Okay, so let's try to do this first. Okay, let's create an object of the human and another object of the alien class. Okay, try to read this and do it on your own. So pause the video and try to do it. Alright, so let's try to do the first part. So create another an object of the human and an object of the alien. So inside we have to go to our inside Visual Studio, we have to go to our main script. And inside our main script now, if we type in human, you can see that it auto completes. We have the human class here, so hit enter and we can create a human. So let's call our human1, for example, and we're gonna, to create the object, we have to say equals new human, like this, and end it with a semicolon. Now the same thing we can do to create an alien. So alien1 equals new alien. Okay, so we have successfully created our human and our alien. Let's see what we have to do next. We have to call the getHealth method on both objects inside a print statement. Okay, so we have to call the, okay, let me see what we have to do. We have to call the getHealth method. Okay, so to call the getHealth method on the human object, we just have to type in the human1 dot getHealth, like this. And we have to do it inside a print statement. So what I mean by this is that we have to type in print. So we type in print, open and close. And inside the print statement, we can actually just paste this. So Command X, Command V. Let me just do it again. Command X, Command V. Okay, and end the statement with a semicolon. So what we're gonna print to the console is the value of getHealth, and getHealth is going to return the value. So that's why we return values, because before I didn't explain it to you, but we have functions that return values. So inside the human class we have this function getHealth that returns the value of health. So when we call this function is gonna be equal to the human's health. In this case it's 200. So it's gonna give us the health of the human. Now we have to do the same thing with the alien. So let's print and let's type in alien.getHealth, and this line of code will give us the health of the alien. Okay, now let's see what we have to do. We have to call the takeDamage method on both objects. Okay, so let's call that method on both objects. So human1.takeDamage. And you might be asking yourself, maybe, why is it possible that we can call these methods? And it is because if we go to the human class, we can see that both methods are public. These variables are private, but the methods are public. The same thing happens in the alien class. These variables are private, but the methods are public. That is why we can call them from another class. In this case, we are calling them from the main class. So we are going to call also alien1.takeDamage. So when we call these methods, our alien and our human are going to take damage. They're going to take damage and their health is going to be lower. And now what we have to do is that we have to call the getHealth method on both objects inside a print statement again. So we have to do the same thing as we did in the first step again. Then save and play the game, take a look at the console. Okay, so let's do that. We can just copy and paste. So just select the prints, copy them, and then paste them below. So what we're going to do here is that we're going to create the objects. So we have two brand new objects. Then what we're going to do is that, okay, so let me just tell you one quick thing. The easiest way to understand what objects are, you can think of the object as the toy. So imagine you want to build a toy, you want to make a toy of plastic. So we could say that the human, this class is like the mold. This is the mold, and out of the mold we create the toy, right? So we could say that human1 is a toy and it comes from this mold. We can create other humans. So I could say human, and then I could say human2, and it will be a new object. This object has nothing to do with the first one. This object, this human2, has its own health, its own power. So if I take away health from the human1, then human1 now has less health than human2. So I just want to make that clear. So maybe it's a little bit easier to understand if you think about the class as a mold and the object as the toy that comes out of the mold. Okay, so now let's try to just save this, go to the Unity editor, hit play. And now inside the console you should see the printed out results. So you can see that we have the health of the human, which is 200, the health of the alien, which is 500. So initially human and alien have 200 and 500 respectively. And after we take damage from both objects, human now has 170 because the take damage function from human takes away 30 from the health of the human. And then in the alien class we have 450 because the take damage function in the alien class takes away 50 from the health of the alien. So that's why we have these results in here in the console. Alright, so I think this is going to be it for this video. I'll see you in the next video.